Welcome back to Peaking. I'm your host, Wyatt Carr. In this episode, I'm talking with a local Denver entrepreneur, Kyle Jennings. He is a copywriter, has never had a corporate job, went straight into freelancing after college. So super interesting story if you're interested in what it's like writing in the age of AI, slop as they refer to it. I think this one will be interesting for you. Kyle, welcome to Peaking. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to have you on. For the audience, I met Kyle at a entrepreneurial networking event. When you get started on any entrepreneurial venture, you realize that you are all alone and there's not much opportunity to meet people unless you go out and kind of force yourself to do things in person. And business development, you meet people here and there trying to do cold calls or however you get your customers. But to meet other people doing similar things is really valuable. You can share stories and connect. And I think we met at some random restaurant happy hour and chatted for 2 hours. And that was probably 6 or 8 months ago. So excited to talk with you about what you've done. You are a writer, which I imagine is a perhaps more uncommon job as the years pass, but maybe not. I'm not an expert in the field, so excited to learn from you. Did you always know you wanted to be a writer? When did you kind of first start writing?
So basically kind of just not lucked into it, but just life happened and just kind of ended up here following just sort of understanding like what my skill set is and how I can like best bring value to the market. I graduated college with a marketing degree in 2020, right as COVID started. So I was going to get a job at an agency. I just had like that sort of basic marketing plan mapped out for myself. So before graduating, I had done some networking, met some people in marketing. Then COVID happened. Then all the entry-level sort of agency jobs went away. Marketing was one of the first places that people cut spending. So I reached out to some of those connections I made through networking. One of them in particular was a business development for small businesses. And so a lot of his clients at that time sort of either had to completely change their strategy where they had done a lot of in-person networking events, and that's sort of how they were building their business. And now for the first time, they had to do something digitally because of COVID. And then there was a second case where people, like I mentioned, the first thing during these sort of times of recession or emergency, the first thing that businesses will do is cut their marketing budget. So companies that had been working with agencies or just more experienced consultants, that kind of a thing, they now had a smaller marketing budget and were willing to work with me. So just started picking up gigs where I could, realized through doing it that what I was doing was called freelancing. And through doing that, I basically started by just doing anything that was under the umbrella of marketing, just doing social media for businesses, helping with their landing pages, anything that could be marketing. And through that and through my experience, I learned that writing is what I'm best at. So about 5-ish years ago now is when I really started to focus in on copywriting and understood that that was like the craft within marketing that I wanted to hone in and develop.
Define copywriting.
Writing. So I would say that copywriting is arguing in its most basic essence. It's making an argument through words that your product or service is a no-brainer for the audience you're talking to.
And typically in the form of newsletters or outreach, emails, or what is the most common medium there?
For me, a lot of my experience has been email copywriting. So follow-up email sequences, typically after lead magnets, emailing / like nurturing an existing list of subscribers and basically converting them. Typically, my clients are businesses that have sort of high ticket offers, like $1,000 plus offers. And so email tends to be one of the best ways to build that relationship with them, build trust. And since it's typically with those types of products, it's not something that someone's going to impulsively buy. Email is a good method to sort of maintain that communication and push them along the customer lifecycle journey. But essentially, copywriting can be anything from like social media to landing pages, website copy, direct mail, anything that is getting your brand name out there or trying to acquire clients that's related to words and writing. That's what I do.
I'm going to use AI to look at the transcription of this episode, and then I'm going to have it write a LinkedIn post for me. I'm going to send it to you, and then see what yours would be different, and maybe use it and see if it performs better with impressions on LinkedIn.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's like the best. I think that's how people think of it when they think of like a human copywriter versus AI, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. And especially when it comes to like impressions, I think there's too many variables to even say like, oh, the AI version won, so that means AI is better or something along those lines. But
We're just going to get a lot of impressions because we both have great mustaches.
yeah, there you go. That's
Did
what
you
it's
write?
for.
Do you write on the side at all as for fun or blogging or anything like that?
Yeah, so I write to organize my thoughts. A very thinky, sort of heady person by nature. So I write to like get whatever is rumbling around in my head onto paper so I can make sense of it and then sort of build upon that, if that makes sense. And then my sort of rule of thumb is write for myself as a practice to think. And if I write something that I find might be valuable to at least like one other person, then I find it's my obligation to share that. But yeah, I love to write. And mostly it's a reflective practice for me, and something that if I wasn't going to be sharing my writing at all, if I never could share my writing, it's something that I still would do.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a lost art, but there's definitely a lot less people doing it. I think reading and just comprehension is so down in the United States. I don't think most people know how to write. I moved to Munich and I was in 2018, so 2 years after my career started, and I recruited there, but I wanted to share the experience of living abroad. And so I started writing kind of like a newsletter of the past week, live a week and then write. And it kind of took a while, it definitely takes time. You can't just, think of it and it's just there. You have to organize your thoughts and structure it well. And I like writing too. I think my parents would take us to the library as kids, and we didn't have a TV, so we would just go to the library and buy a stack of books, and then not buy, borrow a stack of books, and then we would trade books with our siblings, and I had 8 siblings, so there's always like just so many books in the house from the library, and we go back to the library and do it all over again. So we read a lot, and it was
Mhm.
like a 12th grade reading level in like 4th grade, I think. And it wasn't because we were doing anything crazy. We were just reading. That's it.
Right.
And when you read, I think you become a better writer as well. And so I was getting feedback on my newsletters. I was like, wow, you're such a great writer. And then I got one from my dad. It was like, they're kind of long. There's too much detail in these. And I lost all my momentum.
Only takes one criticism, the
One.
right one.
And it was taking a long time too. So instead of writing newsletters, I just started like taking recordings, and I made a YouTube channel, and I would just put a video together. It'd be a little faster and a little easier and lazier. But I have those, 6 or 7 newsletters still, and I think I put it on Blogspot, but I saved them all too. And I was planning on making a book for, maybe my kids to see the adventures we did in Europe, and putting the blog or the writing with the pictures I took at that time. And anyway, I just also appreciate the art of writing, but I don't like writing copy. I do not like writing emails. Recruiting is just so low response, and it's a really
Yeah.
calculated cost on how personalized you want to make each email. And then there's AI intros now where you kind of talk about the person's background for one sentence, and then throw your pitch out there too. And so what do you find is the most challenging in terms of pitches or emails you're writing, and how do you feel like you kind of stand out with your writing style and what you bring to the table?
Yeah, so I would say, first off, I have not had any success with cold pitching my freelance business in the past, so I completely have like gotten away from that. I realized like a rule I've had for myself, and I know very much like not true in every industry, and sometimes it's very necessary. But my rule for myself is that nothing I've done out of desperation has ever worked, at least in terms of like having a very good, like long-term relationship with a client. Those usually come from like existing relationships, my network, word of mouth. So I've realized I'm just better off focusing on the work that I already have and my existing relationships instead of doing the cold pitch thing. But I'd say in terms of like, I guess what makes me different and sort of the challenges of copywriting for clients is that every client is different. So it's really, as a copywriter, I think that writing is a very small part of my job. I think the expertise is really in persuasion and sales. So I think of myself not as a writer in terms of like, I'm really good at writing like flowery language that's super interesting and like poetic in like this Hemingway way. I don't think that's my skill set. What I'm really good at doing is like sort of architecting words to take their specific audience from point A, which is, either they don't understand the product or maybe they have a slight understanding, wherever they're starting from, it's going to be different for each piece. And then to point B, which is making it a no-brainer that either if they can't purchase the product now, that they have it in their mind that like this is something aspirational that they should do once they have the means. So I think the challenge really for copywriting is getting that very deep understanding of the audience you're talking to, as well as like the very real differentiating factors of your product. Because I think a lot of the time going into both, so a lot of the time people speak to a very generic audience. And when you do that, you're going to use sort of vague claims. You're not going to be talking to a very specific situation. And it just makes the copy sort of bland. It's not going to resonate with that very specific person. And same thing when it comes to like the actual differentiating factors of the company. A lot of the times when copywriters don't have that information or they haven't like really done the research beforehand to make that information clear to themselves, they'll use extremely like vague language, such as like, this is a seamless solution that helps your team work more efficiently and scale, or something along those lines, versus having actual language that describes how you make that happen, what is actually different, what is something that you can say, what is something that this company can say that other companies actually can't, like legit differentiating factors, not just language. But I think the challenge is really researching and defining all of that stuff. And I think that there's a quote from Dan Kennedy, being sort of genius. He says something about how most of the process should be research. And by the time that you're sitting down to write your first word of copy, you should have done so much research that it just flows, that you basically know what to say because you've defined that through the research. So yeah, all of it comes down to that. And when it comes to writing good copy versus writing something that's extremely generic, bland, AI slop, that's the real difference, is having that research done beforehand or just going into it sort of blindly, which I think is what a lot of the time happens.
How have the last 3 years been for you in terms of customer acquisition, getting people to work with you? My guess would be, initial guess would be that it's dropped because everyone just uses AI. And then my next deeper thinking about it guess would be actually it might be even higher because you need to differentiate yourself. And if everyone's using AI, then everyone's just like, turn this off, spam. And then if you see a message that might not be AI, they're like, okay, this person actually wrote this, and you give it more respect. How have the last 3 years been for you?
So interestingly enough, I think that I started to notice changes in my business in terms of like demand and amount of new business coming in at the start of this year. And also that could be factors completely outside of AI. But I think that for the most part, I'd say that demand hasn't changed all that much. I would say that clients who have an understanding of what the real value of copywriting is, which is clients who understand that it's not just about like the assignment and getting the writing done and having the actual like words written on the page. It's about having someone that's an expert in persuasion and sales and knows how to architect language in a way that takes the customer from point A to point B. So I would say clients who had that understanding and knew the value of copywriting beforehand, not much has changed, because to them, again, the value isn't actually writing the words. For a lot of copywriters, I think that is how they see themselves, and that is what they do, is literally just, complete projects and write words. So if that's you as a copywriter, then, you know, AI can do what you do better than you do, if that makes sense. Like AI can already write, faster than you can, more iterations than you can. So really the value in a copywriter now is about understanding how to take all that copy and make it work. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the differentiator of this point A to point B, they have these BD tools where the AI writes the first one, it can reply to the second one, and it can, make a AI sentence about the customer and what needs they might have. Where do you see that those have gaps? What problems do you see with those?
So when you're talking about that, you mean like personalized, sort of like instant
Yeah,
solutions, like
exactly. Like
chats?
they'll analyze the person's LinkedIn profile and have a few sentences potentially relevant to what this person has done and what the product itself offers in the copy.
So, and you're also referring to maybe like some sort of outreach to that specific person, correct?
Exactly.
So I think the gap in using the LLM there is sort of the same thing as I mentioned before. Like, I think the LLM is going to be incredible at doing the research. It's going to be able to point out, the specific needs, and like it's going to be able to adapt the messaging to that customer much faster than I could. And I think really what it comes down to is having someone that understands the conversion elements of copy and is able to tweak the AI in order to just make it more persuasive, more compelling to that specific person. But when it comes to actually understanding who that person is and how I can tailor it to that person, I think that AI is going to be much better at sort of automating that and at least getting the ball rolling with that sort of a thing. Versus having someone manually go through each LinkedIn profile or whatever it may be.
Taking a step back, you did work for an agency or just very briefly?
So I've done copywriting work alongside agencies a lot. That used to be my main source of clients. Is I would find agencies to partner with that didn't have copywriters and essentially get referrals from them.
So you've never been like in an office with people?
Nope. Literally never. Worked at Subway in high school. Then I worked for a startup remotely for about 10 months soon after starting my career. So never worked in an office. I say that I've never had a job. Obviously, that's not completely true, but like it's almost true.
Have you done okay? Like, are you making enough to move forward in life? Like, how's the income as a freelancer that never really learned the ropes from anyone?
Yeah, so it's been up and down. Like I mentioned, I started and sort of just started piling on jobs, as much work as I could, and have been riding the wave ever since. So I got to a point where I had a substantial enough income where I was like, okay, this is a viable path within a couple months of starting freelancing. That being said, because like I mentioned, I just started taking everything that was considered marketing, every job I can get my hands on. I had to pivot in my business a couple times. So after that, like in that first period, I took as much business as I could. It was a wide array of different projects and project types and different hats that I was wearing. Within about a year of doing that, I realized, okay, if I want to make this work, I need to pick a lane, which ended up being copywriting, and like really build my business around that. So there's been a few times like that where I had to stop working with some clients and sort of rebuild from zero. Most recently, at the beginning of this year, I mentioned before that I was working alongside a lot of different agencies, and most of my work was coming from referrals from agencies. I got to a point where I realized that if I was to keep working in that way, my growth was sort of limited, because there's a ton of copywriters who want to do the exact same thing. They want to partner with agencies. And so agencies are getting a lot of copywriters that, wanted to do exactly what I was doing, like serving that role. And so with that demand, there's sort of a cap on how much I can charge because they have other options, as well as there's some sort of time demands that I wasn't really happy about, meaning like other freelancers and other copywriters were more flexible and able to like be online constantly for revisions and like work on weekends and hop on for a quick second for this and that. And I didn't want to build my business in that way. So January of this year took another step back and really started refocusing my business. And yeah, that all that being said, things have been okay. Last year was my best year, and then this year is going to be taking a bit of a dip, but I believe that the trajectory is upward, and I think in the long run, it's going to be much better for my business to have sort of restructured everything versus going along with the status quo.
And you're completely staying on this track. You're definitely like the autonomy and the freedom.
Yeah, I think that's what it is I realized that I have this sort of like ridiculous value. Like I just overvalue autonomy to a degree that I used to think of it as being sort of a liability or a flaw in myself. But now I'm sort of realizing that no, this isn't necessarily a flaw. This could be something that's just true to me, and I could build my business around that. But I think outside of just like the sort of time and flexibility, autonomy that comes with freelancing, I think there's been this sort of through learning to like self-manage as a freelancer and learning to build a business based on like, what do I actually value? What do I actually want in life? What are my like natural rhythms and patterns? Through all of this, I've really developed a sense of just self-understanding that I don't think I had before freelancing. And of course, I think there's other factors, through being, I started at 21. So, just like growing and being an adult, I think that stuff sort of happens. And maybe I'm just attributing too much to freelancing, but I credit freelancing for a lot. And I really love this path, and who knows how long I'll be able to make it work for, and if I'll be able to make it work forever. But that is my goal right now. And thinking about that and how I can make it a long-term thing really drives me.
What do you do in your free time that makes you value autonomy so much?
Honestly, I wish I had some great answers. I like to walk a lot. So I think going along with being a very thinky person who likes to write a lot, I just like to walk. That's probably my favorite thing to do in the world, whether that's like out in nature, preferably. But right now we live in Denver, so in Denver for most of the time. But really, I want to create a schedule and a life for myself where I have enough constraints and enough like sort of things on my schedule that I never have just a period of time where I'm like, crap, what do I do right now? I want to make sure my time's filled and that I'm able to sort of get the things done that I want to get done, which like when you're managing yourself as like a business owner, it's important that you schedule that stuff or else it just doesn't happen. But the way I think about it, I do also want to leave enough time for myself where if I'm going from the coffee shop back to, my apartment, I can take the long route. I can walk along like around like the suburbs and stuff instead of just going directly back to my apartment, and like I can stroll, that kind of a thing. So I think it's important for me to have space to do that. And as well as that, I think like it's just space for quiet, for just to get away from the busyness and the constant noise and the constant needing to do something. I just like having space. So I think it's really that. And I also just enjoy creating. So whether that's my freelance business or it's writing, like I mentioned before, for myself, or it's something that I don't know yet, maybe it's some creative project in the future that I think of or that feels like something I really want to do. I want to have space for that as well.
100%. I think it's gonna be really hard to go back to a job if I ever did compared to owning a business. The income is less recurrent, at least in the beginning. You don't have that Friday check coming in every day, but the ability to just do what you want to do is kind of unparalleled. Like if you can make it work financially, there's nothing like it. Like having a job is
Exactly.
so different. Obviously, you haven't really done it, but I can just tell you, like going in an office at 8 o'clock, you have the morning stand-up meeting that you just gain nothing from, and then you sit down, you do your 3 hours of focused work, and then you go like, okay, wait for lunch, and then lunch comes around, and then you got 4 hours left in the office and everyone's just kind of, man, like so much doesn't get done in an office setting.
Yeah.
It's like so many memes about people moving from blue collar to white collar work and just like, oh my, so many people just don't do anything. Like you can really get away
Yeah.
with not doing much in a corporate environment. I think that was really bad in 2019 to 2023 probably. It's probably changing right now because needing to be a little more efficient. But when you own a business, you can work as hard as you want, and then you can do whatever else you want as well.
Yeah.
You can work, 4 hours focused and then go to the mountains, or go to the mountains and then come back and work. You can work on the weekends if you want, and you can take a week off if you want. It really is
Exactly.
freeing, but it comes at a
Yeah.
cost. The first year or 2, even 3 years in entrepreneurship is always hard. Like no one ever says it just is. Actually, I had one guest, Nicole Magelson. She has a virtual assistant business where she employs virtual assistants for companies that need virtual assistants. She was successful in like 2 months or something. But everyone else I've talked to, I mean, it's a grind. It is hard.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to talk about, wanted to cover? We originally scheduled this to literally just talk about podcasting. I think you had seen some of my posts and are thinking about it yourself. Any other
Yeah.
message you want to get out there?
No, I mean, I think kind of just piggybacking, I had a thought based on what you said. I think one of the undervalued parts of freelancing as well, you mentioned like going into an office and having this schedule that's designed for you where you don't get all that much done. I think business ownership slash freelancing allows you the opportunity to sort of author a path for yourself where you can sort of plan out and decide for yourself, like, okay, these are the things that I know will be best for my career, will be best for my business moving forward, the things that I'm just genuinely interested in. And you can exactly like sort of author how you spend your time so that you can develop those things. So I think there's an opportunity with business ownership to grow faster and grow more intentionally as well. So I think that's really the thing that drives me as well. And that makes me really want to keep moving and keep building the freelance business so that I can continue to do this as I evolve and have more financial responsibilities and that kind of a thing.
And grow broader. Like you learn
Yeah.
so much more. Like you're learning about taxes as an employee. You don't think twice about taxes. You're learning
Right.
about sales and marketing and product, and you do it all, and that's not something you're so one dimensional as an employee. Some employees, definitely not all. I don't want to put everyone
Yeah.
in one bucket, but at least in my world, I felt like I kind of stopped learning. And then this last year where I've kind of gone out and tried to do it myself, there's so much more to it. There's so much to the world, dude. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, this big world to explore. I literally hadn't
Yeah.
met anyone in Denver really. It's like starting this business. I'm like, wow, I don't really have a network in Denver at all because I was just recruiting in the Bay Area and New York. And I still do most of my business in the Bay Area, but I am forcing myself to build kind of a network of friends and colleagues, peers perhaps in Denver, and people that I'm kind of sharing the journey with. So that has been forced upon me. Like I had to do that because it's so hard for me to just be alone in a venture. And I'm such a social guy. And I think this podcast has kind of helped with that. I get to actually talk to people.
Yeah. No, I could imagine. I'm the opposite. So I need to schedule these things for myself because by nature, I can like really tend to isolate. And same thing, like the business is obviously I work by myself and I have remote meetings and clients, but I could create a business for myself where I'm alone a lot. And if I don't make sure that doesn't happen, then that's what happens. So I think like the networking stuff where we met, and then obviously you mentioned I was interested in podcasting. I think developing and scheduling more things like this is super important if you're doing the business ownership, especially solo business ownership or a small team business ownership.
My last podcast guest, he kind of gave me a tip that I've kind of discovered myself, but he just kind of reinforced into a solid piece of advice, is like finding peers and people in business and even potential customers, a network of people. You're most likely to find that in a hobby where
Yeah.
you find what you like, you go find people that also like that, and then you're not just trying to hand out business cards at
Yeah.
a networking event with people that you'll probably never talk to again because they're just not really aligned with who you are or what you're looking for.
Yeah.
There's no second level to the relationship. It's like, I offer a service. Like, do you need the service? I'm a great
Yeah.
fit for it. But
No,
you
for
get into a
sure.
hobby, and I kind of did that. I'm into triathlons, and so I sought out people that are into triathlons, and I have a good group of people that are doing similar things to me that also are interested in triathlons, and so we kind of have been spending a good amount of time talking to each other. And there's all these different things you might be interested in, and you find a network that way. I don't know if there's too many groups of walking parties, but
No.
you could make Denver Walkers.
Yeah, no,
That
something
sounds like
like
a
that.
top.
There you go. No, there's enough hiking meetup groups around here, but I do like that idea because I've developed a sort of like an allergy for the business networking stuff that feels business cardy, you know?
To a few of those. I'm like, these are not productive for me. I should be doing it. It is good to just be uncomfortable, but yeah, I don't like it.
That's what I tell myself too. And I'll have that thought of like, oh, am I just not doing this because, or am I writing this off because I don't want to be uncomfortable? But I do think that, yeah, it's the people aren't necessarily aligned and that kind of a thing as well. So I like the hobby idea.
Almost called one person that I met. He does taxes. I kind of need someone to do my taxes, but I've kind of see what happens. I'll have to cut that part out because the
Interesting
IRS is definitely
strategy.
using
Yeah.
AI screening. They're gonna be looking at all the transcripts. Awesome. Well, thanks for the time, Kyle. Really appreciate it. And as you make jumps in your business or have any other news to share, would love to have you back on. And if you end up making a podcast, I'll be your first listener.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate it, man. This is super helpful.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot.
Bye.